Goodbye, everybody, and welcome to this is the Face Off podcast. If you're here, hopefully you know that this is a non-canonical bonus episode of the Face Off podcast. This episode is not constrained by any of the rules and regulations of the Face Off podcast universe, so there's no need. I don't even need to mention Face Off once, even though I've mentioned it 3 to 4 times already in the first 1 minute of production here. That's when production is when you're doing something that has elements of a job in it, even if it's creative. So at one point, creativity turns from creating to producing, right? So even if you're a creative person, if you're a draw person, a person who if you put pen to paper and create images on paper with a pencil or a pen or a bloody finger or a ham bone or any like a piece of salmon or something, any kind of thing, and you create drawings, at some point you're creating. Or okay, but then if it moves from the point where you're doing an unnatural amount of creating, it becomes producing. Or if you're the person who supplies the pen and paper and the snack bar and stuff to the person who draws scrimshaws with a ham bone or on a ham bone. I don't know if you did scrimshaw on a ham bone, if it would be considered scrimshaw. I think maybe you have to do scrimshaw on a tusk of some sort, or a whalebone maybe. I'm not sure how it works. I did learn in reading Moby Dick, which if anybody wants to get into it, I don't know, that was one of the most fascinating books I've ever read in my life. I thought it was really good. It was intense, like an intense amount of whale knowledge went into that. And like I think I mentioned before, but I don't know if that whale knowledge would translate to today. I think a lot of it would, but obviously we maybe know more about whales now than they did back then. But there was a lot of information about hunting whales, because that was a big deal. And then what they would, and it wasn't just like, so it was every single aspect of hunting them. So you would hunt them, kill them, and then work the body. So they would work the body. So every single part of the whale was useful and valuable in some sense. Even like there's this stuff called I don't know what it's called. I forgot. Ambergris. Yeah, something like that. Ambergris. And it's basically just like cud, like whale cud or something. Like whale loogies. Something like that. It's just a disgusting, nasty lump of waxy shit that sometimes washes up on the beaches and stuff. But even that is super valuable. They use it in perfumes and stuff like that, I guess. That's wild, man. Just this nasty lump of disgusting grossness, and it's like, oh yeah, we need that in our good smelling juice that we spritz on ourselves. I think even to this day it's used, because sometimes there's something that gets used like in paint, You know, they used to use all kinds of disgusting shit to make paint, to make those colors, because they had to get you have to get the color from somewhere. It doesn't just show up, you know. So everything had a bunch of different like sources, you know, for paint. So that's why there's this conception of artists being kind of insane, you know, crazy people. And it was sometimes because they would spend so much time around these toxic chemicals, it would fuck them up. That's why the trope of the Mad Hatter is around, is because they used to use mercury in the brims of their hats for some reason. I'm not sure what the reason was, but a person who would build hats would be in close contact to mercury, and mercury would fuck a person up, make them go crazy. You know, that's well sought out, but it wasn't well known before. People used to be fascinated with mercury. You know, they used to play with it and use it for wacky shit. Now we just use it for thermometers. We also use it in light bulbs. Those crazy twisty light bulbs, those have mercury in them. It says they're not crazy now, but it says on the box, I work with them all the time. It says on the box, if it breaks in your vicinity, then you have to do some sort of cleanup thing, you know. And they break all the time, man. And I don't do shit. I just sweep them up and throw them in the garbage. So I don't know if I'm doing that wrong, if I'm part of the problem. I often feel like I'm part of the problem. Whatever the problem is. There's another issue there. If you haven't identified what the problem is, then of course you're part of it. Of course you become part of the problem by default. Even if you don't know, like especially if you don't know what it is. I feel like the problem is just human beings in general. I don't know what it is, but there's something over here that's ticking. And it's funny because there's absolutely no way that it's like really light. And there's absolutely no way that it's coming through in the audio, but I can hear it. So it's like this thing. It's almost like it's interesting too, because I can see right now what's going on. Like I can see the video of this particular feed here. I got there's a timer on it. I got the little microphone thing, so when I talk it goes up to a certain level, but I don't want it to go over a certain level because that's uncomfortable. It says how much time's left, you know, what kind of settings are on. It's all kinds of crazy stuff. There's some things I don't even know what it means on there, you know. Well, yep, no, there's a few I don't know what it means. There's like a little light bulb. I don't know why that light bulb's on. There's no light coming off of the thing. Anyway, so not only am I like hearing things that you're not hearing, but I'm seeing things that you're not seeing. Like I see the things that I did to set this place up. So there's like lamps here that are in an unnatural position. There's this microphone here. Well, you can kind of see the microphone if you're looking in the video. I got this stuff out here that's not, the apartment isn't clean right now. Like I just woke up, and usually what I do when I just wake up is I clean up the apartment. So then we can just spend all day messing it up. You know what I mean? I don't have to think about cleaning at all. I do it first thing, and it's all done. There's nobody around, and it's good. Like I hate cleaning when there's people around. It makes me feel like a maid or a butler or something. It's like you got to work around somebody. You know, it makes it even worse somehow. That's what my job is like at night too, is I show up when nobody's around and I clean up, and then before they get there I leave. And so it's like just some little fat weird cleaning fairy shows up and does a half-assed job of cleaning up, but it's a way better job for for other people not having to do it. You know what I mean? And I like that works, I guess. I don't know. It works for me. I don't have to talk to anybody. This is a podcast all day. What were we talking about earlier? We were talking about whales and stuff. Like, they used the whole thing, the whole whale, like the blubber, the meat. They used the, I'm sure, I don't know what they used the skin, if they used the skin for something. I'm sure they did, though. Maybe like a leather, like would you use that for some sort of leather or something? I think they use the bones for everything, like all kinds of different stuff. Like, they did do those like scrimshaw things. Like, remember that? Well, this isn't real in any sense, really, besides the fact that it. But anyway, that movie Moana, that guy had a big old thing, you know. I don't know what it was. It was a hook thing, and it had shit scrimshot all over. That would be a whale bone, you know, something like that. So they used all the parts, and for all intents and purposes, it sounded super gross. Like, there's a part in Moby Dick where they have the whale hanging up, like a dead whale hanging up over the side, and it's hanging up mouth open, and they're like they're working the whale, you know. Everybody knows what they're supposed to do, and some dude slips and falls into the whale, and it's like an emergency, you know, because he's like drowning inside this thing, and it's like drowning inside a dead whale. It's super weird. There's a part where there's I don't know what it is. It's called spermaceti that they get out of the whale. And basically, it looks just like it sounds. It looks like gigantic sperms, and they gotta just grab them and squeeze them and squish them. That's like somebody's job, is that they're squeezing spermaceti. This is so disgusting. It like sounds horrible. It is probably 100 million times worse. And all this, by the way, is taking place on a boat with a bunch of assholes that's been out on a boat just working steadily with for you know, a couple of months and stuff. So, and in that book, the captain's crazy. I mean, he's crazy in the sense that he's seeking retribution. he's like created a contest between him and the way that I looked at it was that he's like hunting a god. This Moby Dick, the whale, who's a mean white whale, you know, who's this vengeful, mythical kind of creature among the fisher folk, who's taken arms. They've made him vengeful in their own mind, you know. He's this like demon sort of thing, and he's taken people's arms and legs and stuff like that. Captain Ahab, he took his leg, and so now he's created this. This vengeful, no, not that, but this maliciousness inside the whale. Like, the whale's not just reacting; it's like actually malicious. He's what's that? It's called anthropomorphism. It's a hard word. Anthropomorphization, something like that. Anthropomorphization. I want to put a bunch of extra words in there so it works better on my tongue. So it's when you take human characteristics and put it on an animal. So human characteristics are everything. It's every single thing in the world. So you see like a puppy cuddle up next to its mama, to its little mommy dog, and it's like, oh, that puppy's in love with its mama dog. You know, and all that stuff is anthropomorphization, to say that the dog is in love, that it's curling up, that it's next to its mama, all that stuff. All of it's human. None of it is dog. The dog does not have a mom. The dog is not in love. The dog is not curling. The dog is not even a dog. Every single one. So anthropomorphization, though, is a little more specific. That's taking human characteristics and putting it on an animal. So in this case specifically, it would be love and mom, the concept of love and mom. So those things would be the specifics. The rest of it is sort of okay, like a little more a little more specific, like how would I put that? I would say the rest of it, like if you count all the rest of it, it would be maybe a little more of a cynical, like a more cynical of an outlook. But I don't think of it that way. I think like I don't know, man. Let's go back to that book Sapiens, and I still don't remember how to say that person's name. If you got like a wicked look, man, if a dude's name is Bill Jones, it's gonna take me so long to remember that name. So many times. I'm gonna get it wrong. I'm gonna fuck it up. I'm gonna think it was something else. I'm gonna think it was Jones Williams. It's the third or something, forever, for months. Even if you're a live human person, I'm talking to you and we're making memories, I'm still going to be like, what was the name again? It's going to take forever. That's why when I talk to people and I introduce myself and I need to know their name for some reason, I say, hey, Bill Jones, how are you doing? I'll say it out loud every time I meet them. Hey, Bill Jones, how you doing? Until when I look at them, I just see their name floating in big block letters over their head and like a neon sign. So I don't remember the dude's name who wrote the book Sapiens. I'm sure it's cool though. I like those cool names that are different, like Boutros Ghali. That's a cool name. That's different. I wish my name was Boutros Ghali. I would love to introduce myself that way. It would be so cool. I feel like I want to change my name to that, I like names that just sort of roll, like Al Pacino. Like, hey, this is Al. Like, you don't want to just say, hey, this is Al. No, this is Al Pacino. That's how it is. You got to have the whole name in your mouth and it all rolls off. You know what I mean? That's a cool name. God, there was this other guy. I don't know. It doesn't even matter, man. Everybody's got their own concept of what's a cool name, though, That's why people have weird names for their kids. Is they're like, what would be... Like, I got stuck with Jim. My name's Jim. Oh, I got stuck with Jim. I'm going to name my kid Fighter Pilot or something. Which is pretty cool. I wouldn't mind having a weird ass name like that. I mean, I would, obviously, because you get named when you're nothing. You're just this fucking gross amoeba thing that just shits and cries and blah 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 and gets anthropomorphized all day long. Because really, just the animal version of yourself when you're a baby, And then inevitably you go through the phase where you sort of have some contention with your parents, and that I think gets focused on the name a lot, where you're like, oh god damn it, this is me. I'm this forever now just because you decided that this was my name. Like, what good decisions have you made, human? What good decisions have you made surrounding anybody's life? Why would I be happy with it? It should make it way easier to change your name, but that's your first tracking system, That's the first tracking system for your life. There's a theory, like a mystical sort of theory, where everything in mysticism is technically a theory. So that's the problem of jiving between science and mysticism, is that it's all theories. Even though science is all theories too, until I gotta quit saying I keep saying all the time. Have you guys noticed that? Have you noticed? I keep saying it. I'm going to try to stop saying it. I think it might. I don't know. It's part of this talking. This is like the most concentrated talking that I do during the week, and it does help usually. I don't talk to anybody. Like I talk to Angela, and that's it. I get to talk to her a lot, which is really good, but I don't talk to anybody at work. When I walk into work, I have like 4 lines that I need to say, and that's it. And then it's over with, and I'm done. I don't need to talk for the rest of the night. I go to the grocery store, and I say, yep, plastic, both plastic and credit card or debit card or whatever. And that's it. And then I'm out. I'm Gandhi. I'll be able to go to a restaurant, like a fast food restaurant, and I'll order. And that'll be a big. I talk to the dogs a little bit, but other than that, it's not much. It all kind of goes here into this. Sometimes I went and visited a friend, Chris, last night. Talked to him for a little bit. I was a little bit rusty at talking. It took a little while to get going. I just started by insulting him for like 20 minutes, and then not really insulting, but like low key insults, like friend stuff. Isn't that weird that you can insult a friend sometimes easier than somebody you don't know at all? Like right to their fucking face. Shit. You'd be like, God damn, what's going on with you? I don't know. Maybe that's just like the honesty. Just a little more open and honest with somebody that you know and care about and everything. And it comes across even harsher. Like it could become, okay, so there's this mystical theory that you're just this blob of goo as a baby. And then once you get your name, that's when your life sort of snaps into order. And that's when your destiny is solidified, is when you get that name. Like that name is a bearing. I want to say it like a tape measure, kind of. You know how if you put a tape measure out really long, it'll be like floppy sometimes. This maybe isn't a good example. I don't think it is. Well, maybe it is. So as you put a tape measure out really long, and then sometimes like you can twist it just right, and it snaps into place, and it's just all of a sudden like totally stiff, and you can lift up your 10, 15 feet of tape measure into the air, and it's just stuck out there, You know what I mean? That's what it's like. So your baby, you're this amorphous blob of goo, and so your tapes get reeled out, and then you get named, and whap, it snaps into place, and now everything's now your destiny is sealed. Your whole life, every decision, every stupid word you're ever gonna say, all of it is tied to that name, that fucking name, and you can't change it. So Dutch Schultz, the notorious gangster from the 30s, he's not tied to Dutch Schultz. He just egotistically thought he could change his name. His name was Otto Flagenheimer. So his actions were all tied to the name Otto Flagenheimer. And so everything that he did, every notorious gangster ass fucking thing that he did was tied to Arthur Flagenheimer, and he thought that it was tied to Dutch Schultz. He thought that was the name that was getting him respect. That was the name, and maybe it was, but even the decision to change to Dutch Schultz was tied to Arthur Flagenheimer. So that's a theory. That's something we're talking about right now. Names. Like this podcast is named the Face Off Podcast, so it makes it like, even if I'm not talking, if I'm not bringing up Face Off at all, it makes me feel a certain kind of way, If I don't watch the movie Face Off, then it makes me feel a certain way about going under the banner of the Face Off podcast. It makes me feel like I ought to do something different. Let's pivot and go off of that, because right now I'm doing what I feel I ought to do, and what I feel I ought to do isn't necessarily this podcast right now. This podcast is just a means to an end. This non-canonical bonus episode is just a means to an end, and the end is being awake, because it's 12:48 right now. I just got up at midnight. My alarm went off at midnight, and I just got up and set up all this gear. After 5 delectable hours of sleep, I set up all this gear and just started doing this podcast because I felt that I ought to do. I ought to stay up. I ought to stay up. I don't want to stay up. I don't want to be awake right now. But what's funny is it's warring with the fact that I'm in fairly deep on this experimental episode, and I do want to continue. So I want and don't want things that are in opposition to each other. So I want to continue this podcast, and I don't want to be awake anymore. And I feel like I deserve both of those things. Like I deserve to not be awake right now because it's my day off from work. I don't have to go into work. But I also deserve to reap the benefits of not going back to sleep, which is that I'll feel better during the day. I'll get some stuff done, and I'll do. So I feel like in a larger sense, I'm always at war with myself in between what I ought to do and what I want to do, and oftentimes what I do end up doing, and sometimes what I know I'm going to do. Like sometimes I'm like, all right, I know I ought to not go eat McDonald's or whatever, some fast food garbage, but I know already that I'm going to. And if I'm going to, I ought not to overdo it, to not spend too much money. I ought to, I just want to say ought a whole bunch, I guess. I ought to not have a whole shitload of food, so I feel like garbage. But I already know I'm going to. It's envisioned. Like it's part of my destiny. Like that's part of Derek Carl Schoonover, his destiny, when when I was named, that was inherent in my name. That was part of what my fate was. I do like that idea that before you're born. Okay, so I don't particularly like the idea of the fate as a or the name and fate being tied together. That feels a little bit chumpy for me. I feel like that gives away some of the what does that give away? It gives away some of the credit, some of the something. It gives away some of the power to the parents. I think the parents had a lot more power. The parents today, they still have the same amount of power. They just use it differently. Because if you're a baby, a little baby has no defense whatsoever. So the parents, as soon as they're sent home alone, I mean, even the moment that the baby's conceived, whatever, you got power over that thing. You got this power. So you have the same amount of power these days. It's just used differently, and oftentimes like given up. So I think that like going with the idea that your fate is tied to your name is like akin to giving up some sort of power. It's like saying this was all figured out by them. But then who, if your fate, so if your fate is tied to your name and everything you do comes into focus as soon as you're named, then your name was part of your parents' fate. It was already in focus when they were named, and etc. so on into perpetuity. Does perpetuity work in reverse? I don't care. I like it. I'm going to use it. So, and that goes all the way back. It is racing all the way back to the first people, the first semblance of nameage, lineage, naming, and that's a technique that I don't particularly care for, is when I do something that I'm trying not to do or repeat it a whole bunch of times. So if I say, just then I'll say, so instead of doing it once, I'm doing it 1,000,000 times. That's super annoying, but it does, I don't know, it does seem to help because it's annoying. Like I'll put a marker in my head and try to think more next time. Okay, so if if your name is the if your name, so the whole lineage is already done. That's a super fatalistic view of things. The way that I like to think of things is that people have some sort of spirit. My favorite explanation of the spirit of the spirit is from a Kurt Vonnegut book, where there's a guy who's a painter and his name is what is his name? I can't remember. See, I'm not good with names. He had a weird name, Remy Carbinkian. It was something like that. And I want to say the book was Breakfast of Champions. There was a couple, the character showed up in a couple of different books. I want to say at least 3 books. And he was the main character in one book, but he was an auxiliary character in Breakfast of Champions. I know that for sure. In Breakfast of Champions, he sold an expensive painting to a town, and then was called on to sort of explain that painting to a angry group of people in a bar. And what the painting was if memory serves, it was a white field, so just a white canvas with a green stripe running down it. Vertically, I guess you'd say. So a green stripe running down it vertically. And I want to say there might have been 3 green stripes altogether running vertically down this canvas. And it was called something, man, I can't remember the name of the painting, but the name of the painting was somebody's name. It had a real classical name to it. And the way he described it was this was a painting of that person and 2 other people, I think. And what it was the part that doesn't change. It was the unwavering band of green light that is at the core of every person. And I like that. I really, really vibrate with that. That description of a person, because it's so easy. This is the reason why I like that description, is because it's so easy to look at somebody and be like, fuck that asshole. Fuck you. Your life is nothing to me. I hate you so much. I don't even know who you are. I just know that you're on the bus across from me, and I'm fucking going to work, and you're probably fucking going to work, and it's bumpy, and you're wearing a fucking NASCAR jacket with a bunch of patches on it and tight jeans. God, I hate you. Why are you even alive? Why are you even alive? And all of these things, like, what purpose does your fucking NASCAR jacket, bus riding, idiot ass serve? What are you going to do today? What are you doing? What are you doing today? Are you sorting washers or something? Little metal discs with holes in them? Are you making sure to they go into the prescribed number, go into a little container? Are you doing that? Is that your job? That you're sorting nuts and bolts for 8 hours a day until you're nearly blind, and you probably make more money than me, and you go save money by just buying Hungry Man dinners and not doing much else. You have a nice TV that you sit in front of and watch movies on, and don't do anything else. You don't have any other responsibilities. You're just a goldfish that dies every week. You just replace it. You got your bed that you had for 25 years. It's just no car. You do bus riding. You love NASCAR. You just got a big stereo system and a huge TV, and that's your only expenditure. You're sitting on a little fold-up chair in front of it, watching NASCAR with the volume turned all the way up so your whole floor just rumbles. You asshole. And I hate that person. I want the bus to crash just so that person gets impaled by a street sign or something, and that can be the last thing that I see as I slough off my mortal coil, is this fucking stupid ass cut in half by a stop sign. You know what I mean? And I wish for that. It's so easy for me to wish for that. All it takes is a fucking NASCAR jacket on the bus in the morning. And I don't feel like that's good. I feel like I ought not to think that way, but I do. And it's so easy to judge that person. But when I think of them as an unwavering band of green light, and I think of everybody as an unwavering band of green light, I think of myself that way, and I think of Jesus that way, and I think of Peter Steele from Typo Negative that way, and I think of Luna Vachon, the wrestler, that way, and I think of everybody. I think of the bum on the street that way, and I think of everybody that way. It creates this equanimity in my mind that's very peaceful. And in that sense, I feel like it strokes every part of me. So it feels very reductive in a sense, which I want to do. I feel like a deconstructionist of a sort. So I want to reduce things down to their very base element. And it feels like egotistically, it feels like I'm better able to let people exist if that's the case, if there's some sort of harmony reached, you know what I mean? And I feel at peace with myself, because all that stuff that I said about that guy is what I think about myself when I look in the mirror. You know, I think, oh, Jesus, this fucking guy over here. Oh, good Lord, what a chump, you know? What a saying chump. This fucking guy over here. I bet he annoys the shit out of everybody. and I wish much harm, and like creative harm on this person. Like I don't want him to just step out in front of a bus and get run over, you know. Not like that. It would be if he stepped in between two buses that were on their way to collision. That would be what I hope for this person that I see in the mirror. But if I'm able to look in the mirror and sort of imagine a green band of unwavering light, then it's different. It's easier to forgive the meat and potatoes of it, which is what we got to deal with all the time, you know. Fuck, man. That's why it's so hard to wake up in the morning and stay awake. It's just this huge, it's like you go from being ethereal to being this huge pile of meat. Even the smallest person is a really big pile of meat. I mean, the smallest adult, you know, like a little person, maybe 70 pounds, 65 pounds, you know. I don't know, that might even be small. Like really small. Like I wonder what mini me, that was pretty rude. Vern Troyer, I wonder what Vern Troyer, what he weighed. He was a real little dude. He must have been like maybe 50, 60 pounds tops. Even that guy, if you just pictured 60 pounds of hamburger, it's like, oh, that's a lot. That's a lot of meat to be lugging around. You know what I mean? And I'm a big pile of meat. I think it would be a good idea to reduce the amount of meat that I am, but I think I ought to do that, but I haven't figured out a way to do it. So back to the concept. So I think that at our base essence, we're some sort of version of that green band of wavering light. And that green band of wavering light goes forever. It's nothing is, there's no, there's nothing wrong. It all fits in there. It was all, you know, this is my version, I guess, of predestiny. So to put it simple, let's go super simple. Let's not be complex. There's no reason to be complex. The complexity is a choice. And oftentimes it's not complexity, it's just confusion for confusion's sake. So let's not go complex. Let's say a soul. We got a soul. And what the soul is everything the body isn't. And that's hard. That's a little bit hard. That's a little complex there, actually. So let's just say soul, and you just run with your idea of soul. So we have a soul, and the soul exists beyond the body. So the soul exists in many bodies. So that's where like past lives and stuff come into play. The soul exists in many bodies. And either at the onset of a soul's existence or at every stop along the way. So let's compare it to like a train or a subway where there's stops. Even if you're not getting off, there's stops and people are getting off. Other people get off. So you have a choice at every stop to get off and do something different, go a different direction. The soul does. So at the beginning of every life, like as making the choice to become a life of or whatever, the soul decides what happens. That's my kind of fatalism. So the soul writes the story of the life and then closes the book and forgets and goes into a body. And the reason a soul does this is because everything that happens to the meat is nutritious to the soul. So even if you're born into a body that's just riddled with bone cancer, you know, and the suffer for 8 months and then die. This is nutritious to that soul. That soul has, it finds it, that's where I think our worst pains, it's like the lightest tickle to the soul. It's an enjoyable feeling. And see, here's where I go anthropomorphizing the soul. I want to say that my animating feature, the thing that connects me with everybody else, is the thing that makes me me. That's where my ego kicks in here. So I want to say that my soul is like me, except better. It's purer, but it's not. So I feel like the soul is unknowable because it's honestly it's the complete lack of me. Just like when I think of that dipshit in his NASCAR outfit, when I think of him as a band of unwavering green light, I don't know if it's wavering or unwavering. That's two different distinctions right there. But if I think of him as a band of green light, it's taking away everything about him that pisses me off. It's really a reductive thing. And so, but when I think of my band of green light, I think of it as the amplification of all the things I think of as good in myself. But if I'm honest with myself, I don't think that's the case. I think it's the lack of everything that makes me me. It's just back to, it's like not even the battery, it's the charge inside the battery, man. So anyway, let's go back to whales. No. So you start to, I don't know, I think with a fatalistic kind of view like that, you can go either way. You can be a good person, you can be right in the middle, you can be a really bad person. You can say everything that I do is because it's already written. Every asshole move that I make is already written. So what I'm a ship on the stormy sea. I have no say in what I do, kind of. Or you can go the other way and say that yeah, it's all written, but choice is written in there too, or at least the illusion of choice. It's tough. It's tough. Because I feel like I made a choice to stay up today. I feel like I'm still making that choice technically right now. I'm not happy with that choice, but I'm not upset. I'm like man, it's like that yin and yang thing. It's always in balance. Like I'm always pleased with my decision, but feeling like I could have done it different and it would have been better all the time. But if I have a fatalistic view of things, that feeling is already written into my life. All of this stuff is already written in. It's all predetermined. And I kind of feel like that's the case. Like I do feel like that's the case, which doesn't preclude heroism or doing well. It's almost like building this kind of trust, and when you're fully realizing that trust, you find some kind of harmony with existence in general. It's like saying, okay, so I think we even talked about this a couple of times. Let's bring it around to face off. We talked about this a couple of times on the last few episodes, but the theory that Sean Archer gets killed at the beginning, it's a hack theory. It's a hackneyed fucking plot twist, oh, that guy's been dead all along. This is not what you thought it was. So anyway, I don't care. I'm sticking with it. I think he's dead. I think he dies right at the beginning, and the whole movie is his battle to let go of his earthly form. And in talking about that theory, referenced the great and powerful Jacob's Ladder. Was a solid flick, a real creeper, real creeper of a flick, but real good flick. But in that movie, spoiler alert, he was Tim Robbins' character was dead, and his soul was battling, to stay alive. Like it had been separated, and it was battling to stay alive. And at one point, his chiropractor says, if you're fighting against it, then all those hands pulling at you they look like demons. But if you let into it, if you let go and you walk into the light, all those hands become the hands of angels. It's all in your perception of what's happening. So if you cling to your body, then you're being dragged away by demons. But if you let go, then those demons turn into angels, and you're good. It's the same critter. It's just your perception of it. So, fuck. I forgot what I was gonna go for here. I love it when that happens. My mind is a total blank. So we were talking about. Let's go backwards. We're talking about Jacob's Ladder, Tim Robbins, Face Off, obviously Sean Archer. He's alive. It's a hack, or he's dead. It's a hack thing. And before that, we're talking about souls. I don't know. Everything. Yeah, I'm not sure what I was going for there. I got off track. It's okay. I'm fine with that. It was written. It's part of it. So that's the other part. So everything fits. Right? It all fits. So I got off track there. That's part of it. It all fits. It's good. That's part of a cog that goes into another cog. Where do you think that idea came from? So if you look inside of a watch, it's a whole bunch of cogs working together to move this idea of time forward, to keep track of it. Where do you think the cog idea came from? Because you got to have an idea to begin with, and it feels like all of my ideas and all of anybody's ideas can be traced. Like I've had this this thing's been happening to me a bunch of times. I got into watching the show Succession. It's got a cool intro theme. I was like, damn, that's cool. It's like this classical kind of music with this cool hip hop beat underneath it. It's just got this kind of a cool vibe to it. And I was like, fuck, that's a cool sound, man. That's like a really solid beat and everything. And it was stuck in my head, and my head was like, I don't think that's what it is. What is that? What is it? It keeps popping up. And I was like, that's the beat to Succession, but I hear lyrics to it. Like, what am I hearing? Because there's no lyrics to the song. And so I'm like, am I just making up those lyrics in my head? Is this what's going on? Because I'll do that sometimes, but am I just making them up? But it wasn't, because that beat was derivative of another beat that I had heard many, many times. And it turns out it was a Tech Nine song called Who Do I Catch? So I kept hearing these little snatches of Tech Nine vocals. And every once in a while I was like, ooh, I'm being creative. Look at me go. I'm hearing little vocals I'm going to throw over this beat and drop the hottest mixtape of 2018. And as it turns out, no, that beat is just either intentionally or unintentionally derivative of Tech Nine's beat, which is probably derivative of something else. So everything comes from something else, is what I'm saying. And this happened in my brain a bunch. There was another video too where it was Stephen Colbert talking about Chance the Rapper's verse sounds like this verse from a Broadway play, which sounds like this verse from a Lord of the Rings poem. And I was like, oh yeah, all those things sound like what is that? That's a thing. And I look it up. Oh yeah, this is this thing. And then I was like, and it sounds like something else too that I know. And it turns out it's a fucking Violent J lyric from this band called Zug Island that nobody's ever heard about. I mean, some people have heard about it. Don't get me wrong. Don't fucking underestimate the Juggalo population out there. But anyway, this band Zug Island, off their very first album, there's one verse, a short verse in the song that is done just like this, and it's called a patter song. So it's got this really, and anyway, it niggled at my head for a few minutes, and then I figured it out. But some songs it takes weeks. But I have this sort of proclivity towards drudging up what, like Angela really liked this song called Cold Heart or something. I can't remember the dude's name, Michael something. But I was like, man, this song sounds so familiar, the melody of this song. And it took me weeks, but and it was like I was sort of obsessed with it. It was just playing. I mean, it was playing in my head anyway. I might as well figure it out. But it was the same melody as On the Road Again by Willie Nelson. And I'm not saying the dude ripped off the melody. I'm just saying that there's only so many melodies. You grow up with certain music, it's going to show up eventually, even if you're not doing it intentionally. So when I look at cogs, I wonder what they were, where a cog, the idea of a cog, came from. Like, fuck, man. That seems like a huge, it seems like a huge departure from nature. I can't think of anything in my head in nature that looks like that moves in the way that a cog moves, which is fuck, I don't know, nothing really, because nature is super chaotic. The cog system seems like the antithesis of nature, like the complete opposite reversal of what nature does. It's taking and everything comes together in a super controlled fashion, super controlled. They got jewels in there inside of a watch, that's crazy. And then what is the computer system is just a cog system too. It's just a digital cog system. I don't know. Who gives a fuck? It just seems really weird. Seems really strange. Oh, man. All right. So here we are. This has been an interesting, this is an experiment. Okay. So the Face Off podcast. Also, let me put this out there. If you're listening to this, thank you. First off, thanks for hanging out. Seriously, if you're listening to any of these episodes, somebody downloaded all the episodes last week, and that was shocking. I was like, whoa, my count went through the roof. It was like, you're doing 500% better than you were doing last week. I talk about an ego stroke. It didn't take much. It doesn't take much to stroke this ego, baby. But so somebody, whoever you are, thanks. I hope you weren't disappointed. But somebody downloaded all the episodes. That was cool. I feel maybe like I'm calling that person out right now. Or they're like, oh no, that was me. Because it was one person. It wasn't a bunch of people. One person So thanks for doing that. I hope it's been enjoyable if you've been listening to it. And if not, then that's cool too. There's other stuff out there. But the Face Off podcast, it is at its core an experiment, an endurance test. I want to see what my mind is like after a year of watching this movie over and over again, and I'm trying to find the meaning of life and existence and all that stuff. That's the more highfalutin goal of the thing. Which I've got I've got a dichotomy of thought and feelings on that particular goal. One side is that it's absolutely not going to happen, and one side is that it's absolutely going to happen. It's completely 100% destined to happen. God damn, I'm just picking up these It's ridiculous. So this is an experimental episode within the experimental episode. So dropping the compulsive need to sort of tie everything back to Face Off. But it seems doable. It seems like I can do it. I don't... Oh yeah, okay, so look, here's the other part of this. First off, thanks again for listening. We're all over the place here. If you're watching the video, I'm like picking my nose right now. Gross. It wasn't a deep pick. It was more of a surface level pick, but sometimes that can be worse. Somebody's like working it just right in front of your face. You're like, God damn, man, I'm standing right here. You doing that? And the nose picking thing, it should be okay. We should be fine with that. That's just like maintenance. Just taking care of maintenance. I guess if somebody pulled out a toothbrush right in front of you on the street and started brushing their teeth, it might be like, gross, dude. You're going to do that shit right in front of me? Right in front of me, you nasty motherfucker. Shit. Get that shit out of my shit. It might not be that bad. Somebody pulled out a toothbrush and started scrubbing the inside of their nose, you know what? Like, I guess maybe not. Maybe it's just there's different varying degrees of gross. I think like if somebody has some the sand asleep in their eyes and they pick that out, that's okay. That's not too big of a deal. If you got some eye issue, some eyelashes, you pick an eyelash out, that's all right. If you got to wipe the side of your mouth, that's fine. But if there's something inside your mouth, like you got a sesame seed stuck back there or something, and you're like digging around, that's not as all right. That's pretty gross. That's pretty funky. Picking your nose obviously is pretty high up there on the funk level. Like, nobody wants to see you do that because it's like you're putting yourself inside yourself. Maybe that's part of the grossness of it. Ear cleaning. So maybe it's the deeper you go. So if you just a little finger in the ear, that's still pretty bad, but it's not so bad. But if you got like a Q-tip or a key or something, and you're digging around in your ear, excavating shit, maybe that's part of it. Is the what gets excavated. So presumably what's stuck in your mouth is some sort of food, which isn't too big of a deal because you probably you got a disposal hole right there. But in your nose, it's like, oh man, this isn't going to go out the other way, so I got to dig it out this way and get rid of it. In your ear hole, it's the same thing. Like there's some ancient grains in there you got to pull out and get rid of somehow. People are like, man, I don't want that to be anywhere near me because it was inside your gross body. That's probably why farts are so terrible, because you're smelling the inside of somebody's body. They're like, here, have a preview of the inside of my disgusting body. Yuck, man. People's bodies are gross, dude. It's such a gross pile of just a collection of disgusting things happening. You got to get to know somebody pretty well before their body ceases to be disgusting. I think there's a point when you're getting to know somebody where their body isn't gross at all. Like you put them on a pedestal, but then after that, the grossness sort of seeps in, and that either strengthens your it's weird. It's like that grossness either strengthens the love, the infatuation kind of, or it softens it or turns it brittle, that kind of thing too. So this episode, back to what I was talking about. This episode is the experiment within the experiment, and it's not constrained. I have friends. I know people. Some people, and I would like to have other voices on this podcast, other guests. And the idea that I had surrounding that was that if you were a guest on the Face Off podcast, well, guess what? You gotta watch Face Off, buddy. Come on, I'll give you my Netflix password. I got it downloaded, man. I'll send you a thumb drive with Face Off on it. I'll send you a phone with Face Off on it. You can watch it right there on that little screen. I got a little phone that I don't use anymore. I'll put it right on there. And you got to watch that movie and then come in and talk about it. That's what we're going to do. I'm going to get your distinct, personalized impressions about this fucking movie that I'm torturing myself with, because I want you to be tortured too. That's what I want. That's what I want with my art. I want the world to be tortured like I'm being tortured. At least a little bit for a few minutes. Come on. Give it a try, buddy. Give it a try. And strangely enough, that sales pitch doesn't seem to work very well. So my idea is instead to create this non-canonical offshoot of the Face Off podcast where it's optional. If you don't want to, if you don't want to watch Face Off, you don't want to talk about Face Off, you don't have to. You just come on and talk about stuff. We just talk about whales. That's cool. You like whales? Let's talk about whales. We talk about anything in the world. There's so much available. That's cool. So this is an experiment that's going towards that. Towards having a guest. Towards having somebody sit in another seat next to me, and we're talking and we're having a conversation. An interesting conversation. I'm trying to move some of the roadblocks out. I have roadblocks. I don't want to ask anybody. I don't want to... If I'm being honest, I don't want to talk to anybody enough to ask them to come and talk for a long time. I feel like that for me, the asking part is the creative part. That's the difficult creative part. And the talking part becomes sort of the production part, where I'm like, I can be a little bit, I can be beside myself, not 100% myself. Like I can be less focused on the conversation, which will in turn make it a better conversation. When I get too focused, I'm thinking way too hard. I'm like, what is this? What are you saying right now? What are you really saying right now? What is it? I want to know. I want to know what it is. I want to know what it means to me. And then I don't end up saying anything. I just sit there like going, oh yeah. But if I'm a little less focused on the conversation, I can talk a little better, a little faster, a little, gooder. Be gooder. I can be gooder. Okay. All right. Let's wrap this thing up. So the non-canonical bonus episodes I might do them as much as once a week, to where it runs alongside the other, and it's just a chance to not be constrained. So to see how that works, and hopefully get some guests on here. I don't know. I don't foresee myself asking anybody in the near future, so that probably won't happen. And then getting together with somebody, man, that's tough. Like, when do you do that? When you get together with somebody to talk, hey, how about noon? You want to get together at noon? No, I want to get together at midnight on Tuesday. I want to get together at at 7:30 in the morning, right when I get off work. I'm covered in dust and just feel disgusting. And we'll go sit at the park and set up all this gear as the sun comes up in the frigid northwest or northeast, I guess. I don't know where we are. Like, I'm going to do that. Like, I'm going to talk to somebody. I'm going to talk to somebody and say things like, why don't we talk together? Like, I think you're an interesting person. That seems kind of intimate, doesn't it? I think you're an interesting enough person that I want to sit next to you and talk into microphones, and then podcast this out into the world, and let other people hear our conversation and hopefully take something away from it. Oh, man, who is that? Who's that person? Who's that person that I want to talk to? Who's saying? This is where I have to go back to the green wavering band of light. You know what I mean? Like, if somebody, so there's people that I admire. You know, there's people coming through town all the time that I admire. There's a whole group of people coming through all the time with comics, you know, and musicians and stuff. There's people, artists and stuff that I admire, but I think I only admire them from a distance. You know, I don't think I'd be like real jacked to meet somebody like Harlan Williams or Dave Attell or Whitney Cummings or Fall Out Boy. I don't know if those guys come through town, or like Tech Nine. He's always in town, but that's what I would be like drawn to. Like, I want to say, let's get somebody on here who I could put their name on, and then people who don't have a fucking clue who I am would be like, yeah, I know that person. I want to hear them talk regardless of who they're talking to or what they're talking about. And it would open up like an audience or something. But the other part of me is like I want to grab the hobo. And I call them hobos. I don't think they are hobos. Hobo, I believe, stands for homeward bound. So you're not homeless. You're homeward bound. So you're working your way home. You know, like it was an old school term. It just feels like saying hobo is better than saying bum or homeless person, you know? Homeless person. But I want to like grab the homeless person, some homeless dude or woman out of the park across the street from my house, and do a podcast with them. That feels pretty shitty. I don't know. Is it shitty? I don't know what it is. It feels like an asshole move to do. I guess whoever I end up getting, because there'll be at least one guest in the run of this. This show's meant to go on for a year, and we're already 3+ months in, maybe even more. So there'll definitely be at least one guest. I would like to have Angela on here. Maybe that's what I'm trying to do, is deleting the need for, because she will not fucking watch Face Off. We started it one time and she's like, fuck this shit. She's into the Illuminati in Hollywood and everything, and she's like, this movie is dripping with disgusting grossness. And I hate it. I can't argue with her. It's pretty bad. So she's definitely not going to watch the movie in order to get on a podcast that happens in our living room with with a solid, like, 878,000th place rating on iTunes or something. Which is pretty good. I mean, there's 800,000 underneath that 800,000. I don't even know how to check my iTunes rating. I don't have any Apple gear. I feel like that's a minor impediment, and I just don't know shit about shit. But so there will be a guest on here, and I guess that guest is written in the stars, so to speak, if we're being fatalistic about it, that guest, once that person was named, was has been destined forever to be the first guest on this podcast. And I, in my naming, have been destined to somehow, what do you call that? Make that happen. In some way, make it happen. And I don't know how that's going to happen. But it is. I think I'm sort of falling asleep right now. A little bit. I have a tendency to do that sometimes. I will nod off all the time. I've nodded off walking and almost fell down just from being tired. That's a weird feeling, to be that tired, like standing up tired, So I'm gonna get out of here. Keep yawning into the mic. Thanks again, man. Like, wholeheartedly, Thanks for hanging out. Like, it seriously is interesting to me that anybody is stuck around this long, and I like it. It's a good feeling. I'm working on getting past the ego feeling of it and stuff, but it's nice to be able to talk to whoever it is. I don't need to know. I don't need to know who you are. I read a book by Deepak Chopra one time, who Deepak Chopra, man. This is what we deserve in this world, is spiritual leaders like Deepak Chopra. Fucking asshole. But I read one of his books one time, and it was about money. And he said, look, this was in the intro. He said, this book is powerful, son. This book is powerful, kid. All right? You hear what I'm saying? This book is fucking powerful, bro. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. He's like, this book is so fucking powerful, kid, that you don't even need to understand what the words are saying. You don't have to even have reading comprehension of what the words mean, all strung together, son. Do you understand what I'm saying, kid? All you have to do is be able to read English. Alright? Can you read English, son? Huh, kid? Can you read English, boy? Come on. That's not much. Most people can read English. Give this book to your 5-year-old kid. That kid can read English. This book will change that kid's life. This book will fuck your world up in a good way. If you like cash, because you're going to be rolling in it, son. You're going to be rolling in that cash, kid. So okay, that I maybe got out. Okay, I got out of hand there a little bit. He literally said in the book that as long as you can understand English, this book will change your life. You don't have to have a comprehension of all what the words mean, but as long as you can understand English, this book will change your entire life. And I don't know if that's the case. Maybe it was. Maybe Deepak Chopra is not a scumbag, and he is actually a good, a solid dude. I mean, I got to look at him as that wavering band of light, or unwavering, one of the two. All right, man. Hey, sincerely though, thanks a lot for listening. Any questions, comments, concerns? Call or don't call. Make texts happen. Type words into computers. Become a cog in the machine and just send them my way. It's don't be fun everywhere. Messenger's probably the best. We all know these things. We all know how this works. But thanks, man. Thanks for hanging out, guys. It's been an experiment. Good times. Wish I could end it with something interesting. I don't even know a joke or a limerick or I almost said an antidote. What was I thinking of there? I can't remember. All right. Hey, man. Thanks again for hanging out. Have a good day. Have a great day. Have a day filled with not anything that you want, but everything that you need. That sounded like a curse. Nothing that you want, only what you need. Have a great day filled with all that stuff, and thanks again. Goodbye.